Welcome to another episode of Talking Fast, a Gilmore Girls podcast. I'm Suzanne.
And I'm Alexis.
And we're two longtime fans of the show, and we're excited to rewatch and recap it along the way.
Okay, this week we will be discussing Season 1, Episode 13, Concert Interruptus. That's Latin, maybe. The Netflix bio reads, trouble ensues when Rory takes her friends to a Bangles concert in New York. Lorelai learns something about Luke's romantic past.
And don't forget to rate us and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. And send us your gazebo moments from the first season to talkingfastpodcast@gmail.com. And follow us on Instagram @talkingfastpodcast. Now you've got me thinking about the Latin in the title. And let me explain to you why it's not correct Latin.
Okay.
Interrupt is a verb. The US ending is for masculine nouns. So if it was concertus and then interrupt with one of the verb endings, it could be Latin. But just adding a US to the end of a word, especially when it's a verb, does not make it Latin. They should have hired an expert.
Mm-hmm. All right, we're starting in with the critique early. But also, you learn something new every day. That's good.
Yeah. It's about as far as my Latin goes after 4 years of taking it.
You still found a way to apply it, though, usefully. So I think it's good.
Yeah, it's true.
All right. Shall we get things started with our Talking Fast segment?
Yes. Sure. I feel like I'm either going to way oversimplify things or do what I always do and spend 30 seconds on the first 5 minutes of the episode.
And you're probably not going to do it in Latin then.
No. Mm-hmm. I don't want that much critique. People would get really... I'm not very good at Latin. It'd be embarrassing.
Okay, all right. I will give you a countdown then. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, there's a rummage sale in Stars Hollow that Lorelai is organizing, and Luke drops off stuff, including an old sweater from his past girlfriend, Rachel. Lorelai wears the sweater and sets Luke off. Meanwhile, Rory is paired with Paris, Madeline, and Louise for a project. And then they somehow end up going to a Bangles concert, and Madeline and Louise leave, I guess, to go to a party. And Lorelai hunts them down, and then she apologizes to Luke at the very end.
Sorry.
Is that it?
I was just listening to you. I completely forgot to mark the 30 seconds.
I was so surprised. I was so, there's no way I was actually that good.
That might have been a minute. I'm sorry. Oh.
That's okay. I'll make you go for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
As punishment.
That's good.
Okay. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Go.
There is a rummage sale. It's taking up Rory and Lorelai's house, which is a bit ironic because Rory invites her group to do work there, and they're all surrounded by all of this stuff. Lorelai offers the Bangles tickets to them when she sees them and thinks they need to bond a bit more, so they go. There is drama. Madeline and Louise get in trouble for leaving. And yeah, that's it.
That's it.
It was hard. Ugh.
Once again, I feel like a lot of this episode was smaller moments of just character development, or not even necessarily character development, but learning more about characters. So that's cool, but it's also hard to recap in a speedy way.
Right. But it's not I feel like people use the word filler in a kind of as a critique or a negative quality, and so it's not the perfect word to describe this episode, but it was the sort of making the significance of maybe insignificant things. This wasn't huge plot points, but it was still a delight to watch. But it is hard to then recap in 30
Yeah.
seconds, you know? Shall we slow down and attend to all of these different small, fun moments?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay.
I love how it opens.
Mm-hmm.
It opens with Lorelai and Rory in Lorelai's room, and Lorelai is attempting to clean out her closet. And of course, she can't find a single thing she wants to get rid of. This just gives us the whole premise of the episode with a rummage sale.
Mm-hmm.
This was such a Lorelai moment, though. Like, I can't imagine her willingly throwing things out, and she doesn't. At one point, Rory just takes a handful out of her closet and is like, "This is what's going."
Mm-hmm. Right. This might be a little on the nose, but this opening scene is my Lorelai's Closet nomination because
Oh, yes.
it's literally her closet. I thought I have to award it. And it's such a fun closet, as you're saying. It's like full, it's overflowing. She is so attached to everything. She can't possibly let anything go. She calls it her happy family of clothing that she doesn't want to uproot. It's ironic because she organized this rummage sale, so the whole reason that she needs to give anything up is kind of her fault. And the top, like, they focus on one piece of clothing while they're here. It's a halter top that has tassels, rhinestones, and zebra stripes, and she's had it since she was 17.
Oh my God, just so random.
I know, it's just the epitome of her style, and just, you know, the very basis of what we form the segment on, her overflowing fun closet. So I was happy we got to see it at the start of the episode.
My Lorelai's Closet moment will be at the very end, but I think goes along nicely with this.
I look forward to it.
There were so many possibilities for Lorelai's Closet this episode. I mean, they talk about clothing constantly. Of course, there's like the sweater, the infamous sweater. Way too many options.
Yeah, definitely.
So our next scene is downstairs where Lane is helping Rory sort through things. There's a poster of cats in a toilet, which seems like something that you like, that would be, you know, when you go and you're buying frames at like a craft store or something, sometimes there's just like a random print inside. That seems like something that would be inside a frame, but it was signed, so
yeah, when
somebody
Lane
really purchased that.
when Lane holds it up, Rory says, "Another one?" So they've had more than one of these prints as well, which is really, as you said, this whole episode brings up a lot of funny clothing items, but also just really random items that they're collecting at their house, which is kind of the home base for this rummage sale. It was really amusing. But into this scene walks Sookie with another major kind of premise of the episode establishment. I feel like that was really weird sentence syntax on my part. Anyways, Sookie walks in to announce that she's received free tickets to a Bangles concert in New York. And it sets up this original plan, which is then changed a bit later on, about Lorelai, Sookie, Lane, and Rory going to the concert that weekend.
Which sounds wonderful. I've never heard of the Bangles outside of Gilmore Girls, and feel like some people will be angry about that. But I've never listened to them outside of this one episode where they play a couple of songs. But it's clearly something that everybody's looking forward to. It's Lorelai's favorite band, so yay.
It is, yeah, yay.
Something else that happens in this scene, I mean, we get Taylor showing up with chipped dishes, which Taylor, of course he would have chipped dishes. But we also get another like foundational moment for the episode, which is when Luke drops off his donations, and then he leaves, but Lorelai comes and looks through the bag and finds this sweater, which is again, the infamous sweater.
Mm-hmm.
I have a hard time describing what it looks like. It's almost like teal and blue tie-dye, kind of.
Yeah.
Or like the splotchy kind of tie-dye.
Almost camo.
And it's got like rainbow rhinestones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a strange sweater.
Very strange.
I don't want to say hideous, but I would not wear it.
Yeah, me neither.
Mm-hmm.
It does seem kind of in tune with like the 2000s urge to put rhinestones on things, on everything.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe without the rhinestones it would be kind of okay,
I think so.
but
Yeah.
they just make it another level.
Right.
So then in this one scene we get both of the cruxes of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Cruxes? I wonder what the plural of crux is. I wonder what the plural of crux is. Not cruxes.
I don't know. Okay.
Okay.
The next day, our next scene at Chilton, we get yet another foundational moment of the episode, which throughout this episode, I enjoyed it, but I also found it difficult to pick out a gazebo moment. Like one moment that really stood out amongst the others. So this scene does have my gazebo moment, but it's not like some of my past gazebo moments where I was like definitely like yes. But I pick this as my gazebo moment because the teacher assigns a group project. And I like this trope of forcing all of these kind of enemies or people who don't know each other that well into one group. So, of course, here we get Paris, Rory, Madeline, and Louise all within one group. And Paris is even like, excuse me, teacher, who did you point at? Was it all of us? And then when it is clear it was, she's like, are you sure? Like, Paris really tries to work her way out of this, but is unsuccessful. And I like that this sets into motion an episode with far more interaction between these four girls than we've seen so far. And it like unfolds in a pretty fun and nuanced way that I enjoyed watching. So this is my gazebo moment, the assignment of this group project about their Charles I debate. Did he receive a fair trial? I could kind of care less about that debate topic, but... Yep.
Well, you will be able to after this because that was my Rory's bookshelf moment. So Charles I, let me double check. I'm really bad with the dates, but let me check the dates that he reigned. So he was King of England from 1625 until 1649 when he was beheaded. And he was pretty much the last reigning monarch in England in like the same vein as all those like early modern kings and queens that we think about, like Henry VIII and Elizabeth I and all of that. And right after, well, he was beheaded at the beginning and because of the English Civil War, which was pretty much a battle. I mean, it's much more complicated than this, but it was pretty much an ideological battle between the Puritans, or people who wanted much more like strict religious rule, and also probably more of a middle class, less of a huge wealth discrepancy, versus the nobility, including the king, who spent money and the country's wealth and taxed a lot, pretty much just for their own frivolity. And so he was beheaded, and then after he was beheaded, there was actually, I think it was about 20 years when England didn't have a monarch. They were purely run by the parliament, which most people don't know about because we think of England as just like a monarchy. But then his son was brought back when people were like, this parliament thing isn't quite working out like we wanted. So Charles II, you were hiding away in France. Why don't you come on back?
Nice.
after we killed your father. And one of the big people that people might recognize from the English Civil War is Cromwell.
Mm-hmm.
Funnily enough, when Charles II came into power, Cromwell was dead, but now this is a trial they should have debated over. Charles II exhumed Cromwell's body and put him on trial for the murder of his father and like leading the Civil War and everything.
That's so dramatic.
And found him guilty. He found him guilty, and then he took his head off of this decomposing corpse and put it on a pike outside of, I think, like Westminster Abbey or something like that. You can find pictures of like this kind of mummified looking head. People, of course, don't know for sure that it's Cromwell's, but Cromwell's head eventually just disappeared, as you know, you would think a head standing on a pike for multiple years would. But yeah, they should have debated that trial. That would have been macabre and hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's a bit of a history lesson for you.
I really appreciate that. That was fascinating. And I like that you brought up the trial that they should have debated. I would have liked to see them go after that one.
That would be hilarious. Also, just like, I would have loved if they had slipped that in as one of the references that they don't really explain, just like debate Charles II's trial of Cromwell, and then most people wouldn't get why it was such a weird reference. But anyways.
Right. The very last thing I want to say about this scene is that I appreciate how throughout this the teacher is like giving Tristan a really hard time. Which I enjoyed. She keeps like calling him out as Mr. Dugray, which, by the way, is such a rich sounding last name. Very fitting. And I like that she calls him out like, pay attention. But then I don't really like how she's like, oh, stop staring at Miss Gilmore's ear. Because then that embarrasses Rory in front of everyone. When really it's like, it's his fault he's not paying attention. But I liked that she was kind of being sassy toward him.
Yeah. We also get a little bit of Tristan right after that flirting with Paris. Paris, of course, thinks this is just to get to Rory, and Paris is happy about it. She really wants to be flirted with Tristan. It's disgusting.
I'd also like to note, since we've had this debate before, and I wanted to demonstrate how prepared I am. No. I noticed in the scene, Madeline is the brunette and Louise is blonde.
Yeah, okay. Good.
So we are very serious watchers.
We do know something.
But we just are trying to fit so much in our brains. It's hard to remember. Okay.
Yeah, they are troublemakers. They're a duo, so it makes sense, you know.
Yeah.
They're always seen and talked about together.
Exactly.
Excuses.
Okay, moving on. After the school day, returning to another storyline that's going on, Rory and Lane meet up and are really just trying to formulate a plan that will enable Lane to go to this Bangles concert with her in New York. And we've seen before how their plans to get Lane to say go to the movies for a double date has backfired. So I was immediately thinking like, I don't know how this is going to go. You know, you can't fool Mrs. Kim.
And Lane's like main strategy was to tell something as close as possible to the truth, but not. So she was going to say, we're going to a play.
Right.
Because that also happens on stage. And there's an audience. I guess that's the main similarity. But what she ends up telling her mother is, first she says, we're going to a show on accident. And then they try and cover it up. And she's like, a play where people stand on stage with instruments. So they, you know, didn't really do a great job on the half-baked plan to begin with.
They fumble the ball, to use a sports metaphor.
I like that Lane clearly gets so much better at tricking her mother pretty much in the next couple seasons. She gets away with a lot more. I am sad that she wasn't allowed to just go to the concert, but you know.
Yeah.
parenting.
And I know we've talked about like the mom code and how nice it is that Lorelai and Mrs. Kim respect each other's parenting strategies and whatnot. But, you know, as someone who's been a child before, I wish Lane would have just gone for the lie here. You know, like at the end of the day, is her truthful? Her attempt to say the play thing, just like an outright lie, could have sealed the deal, as bad as it sounds. But we would have seen her at a Bangles concert if she lied. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's true. I like that you mentioned that you have, in fact, been a child before.
Right.
Great information to have about you.
I don't even know why I needed to front it that way. Anyways, Rory departs from Lane's and heads over to Luke's diner, which is going to contain a momentous scene. But prior to that, I wanted to bring up my Welcome to Stars Hollow moment, actually. And it's a smaller moment when Rory is opening the door to Luke's. She notices a poster for the rummage sale. And it first caught my eye because it was very, like, quaint and charming looking, just the typography, and it has a little illustration of a bridge, and the bridge is called Old Muddy River Bridge, which I think is just such a like a Stars Hollow kind of name for a bridge, you know. So I was already thinking like what a nice aesthetic poster, but then when Rory goes in to ask Luke about it, she's kind of giving him a hard time because she says, "You're not one for public displays of town affection," which I think is a great phrase. And so it becomes clear Luke has put it up because Lorelai asked him to. And, you know, he wouldn't have done it if it was Taylor or anyone else, but he put up a poster for a town event on Lorelai's behalf. And I just think that is so sweet. I like the poster. I like Luke's crush. Everything about this is, you know, cozy and heartwarming to me. So that is why I nominated it.
Yeah, just more evidence of Luke pining for Lorelai.
I love it.
He also even brought things, which is surprising. But of course, after that nice heartfelt moment, Lorelai shows up wearing this sweater, and she's also wearing a green leopard print cowboy hat.
It's fuzzy.
Still not quite my Lorelai's closet moment.
And it's fuzzy. When Luke is like, "What are you wearing?" Ow. I thought surely he has to be talking about the hat.
Yeah. And clearly Lorelai is super taken aback. I mean, it's not really out of character, I guess, for her to come in wearing these crazy outfits. Maybe all of the things together would have warranted some reaction, but usually Luke would have said something snarky or sarcastic about her clothing. Though I don't really know. I guess the only time we've really seen him comment on her clothes was after she dropped Rory off at Chilton, which is good. I don't think men should go around commenting on women's clothing.
Right. So we know, we know that something deeper is going on when he draws attention to her clothing at all, but he doesn't really explain in this moment. So Lorelai is understandably left quite, confused by the level of, how worked up he gets. And she later calls it a hostile reaction, too, which isn't really that far off.
It's true. It's very not like their usual diner moments.
And that leads to the next day, as Lorelai and Sookie are going through the rummage sale, Lorelai does some investigative journalism. Not really, but she is asking Sookie, very leading, Sookie and Miss Patty, actually. She's trying to get the dirt, basically, on, why is Luke reacting to the sweater? Or maybe, actually, Miss Patty picks up the sweater at first and is like, "Oh, this is Rachel's sweater." And then Lorelai's like, "Okay, hold up, back up. Tell me more about this, Rachel."
It is kind of astounding that Luke had a whole girlfriend for an extended period of time, and Lorelai never knew about it.
Yeah.
They excuse that by saying that she had, I think, an 11-year-old, Rory was young, so she was trying to deal with that, and also her job and everything.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming Lorelai still went to Luke's pretty often even then.
Yeah. They also mention that this was 5 to 6 years ago when Luke and Rachel broke up. And they say Lorelai, as you said, had a 11-year-old kid and had just moved into the house. So I wonder if she wasn't in Stars Hollow yet. Like, she was working at the inn, but maybe lived elsewhere. And so maybe that's also a sign that we've questioned before. Like, how could she afford to have that house? Maybe she had saved up by the point where Rory was 11 is when they moved in.
That's true.
I felt like it was useful exposition.
I'm pretty sure before the house they lived in like small like garage or shed or something outside of the inn, because doesn't Rune move in there at one point? But yeah, so she was probably saving up money then. And she probably wasn't yet like the manager of the inn, so she probably had crazy hours. Yeah, so I guess that makes sense.
We interrupt this podcast with a message from our sponsor.
Fast fashion is a blight upon humanity. We know your closets are filled to bursting with things you don't wear. Your garages are packed with trinkets and drum sets that gather dust. Thankfully, Stars Hollow's own, Lorelai Gilmore, has found a solution to your problems. This Saturday, the town will host a rummage sale for you to get rid of your old things and fill your house with your neighbor's old things instead. All proceeds go to saving our old muddy river bridge that has sat in disrepair since 1783.
This week through Friday night, drop off your discarded treasures at Lorelai's house. Bring your sentimental trophies and trash, your tarnished silvers and spoons, your chipped dishes and drawers, your dinged china dolls and children's toys. Just come into Lorelai's house, no need to knock, and thank your trash for its role in your life and release it into the black hole that has become the Gilmore abode.
For listeners of Talking Fast, we are pleased to announce that you will be given a raffle ticket with your donation. Just mention Talking Fast to the ladies of the house, and they will give you a raffle ticket. What's this raffle for, you ask? It can be exchanged at any point during the sale to buy back something you accidentally donated, even if that object is on its way to a new home. During this moment is also my Stars Hollow moment when Miss Patty shows up. So Miss Patty shows up, and she has something to donate to the rummage sale, so she brings Lorelai out to the front yard, and there are these huge drums. They're bigger than drums on a drum set. They must be like marching band drums. The largest one even looked like it wouldn't have worked for a marching band. But she said that she danced on these in 1969. I think I don't remember exactly where she said she danced, but it was one of Miss Patty's past lives. And I think I've said this before, but like there are certain characters in this show that just represent Stars Hollow to me, like Suki and Jackson, and then Babette and Miss Patty. Like they are synonymous with Stars Hollow. Even Taylor, because they're all just kind of weird and quirky and very specific people. And so Miss Patty coming up here with her huge drums that she thought somebody might want to buy from the town was my Stars Hollow moment, because it just seemed like something that would only happen in Stars Hollow.
Yeah.
Miss Patty. And she also has trampoline class at 2.
Yeah. You know, we were, or should I say our sponsors, you know, when they give us ad copy for Miss Patty's, we left out trampoline classes, but she's a jack of all trades.
I wonder, I'm trying to imagine what a trampoline class would look like in her studio. So I know there are big like warehouses with trampolines in them, but with hers, I'm just imagining those like small, like 3-foot wide trampolines.
Yeah.
And people just jumping on those, which it'd be interesting.
So continuing on, there have been various Stars Hollow visitors for the rummage sale, but now we get some out-of-town visitors. Paris, Madeline, and Louise arrive for their study session, and they are surprised that Rory was serious when she said they were supposed to turn right at the, let me see, what was it? Big rooster statue, Monty the Magnificent. Which just sounds like
oh my gosh.
it's obviously silly driving directions, but what could be more true for like talking about an entrance into Stars Hollow? It's not only like them having a weird reaction to weird driving directions, but also just being in a completely different town and like state of life that they are now interacting with.
Yeah. I imagine their houses, like, their front rooms are almost as big as Lorelai and Rory's whole house. So if they could collect all of this stuff for the rummage sale and not be out of space, it would all just fit in the basement or something.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting experience for them. Strangely, Madeline and Louise seem pretty excited about it. They both kind of start looking through some of this stuff, and they seem like they want to just, I don't know, be friendly.
Yeah.
Maybe they just want to procrastinate the group project, but either way, it's something that you would expect high schoolers to do, like try and chat instead of work, to Paris's chagrin.
Yeah. Yeah, Paris in the scene is very like a disgruntled rich version of like a Leslie Knope character. I noticed he even brings out like bound copies of notes for all of them to go through, and is very much trying to lead this meeting and saying who's going to do what during the debate, trying to keep them all on task, and she's not being very successful.
Yeah. Something that will be significant later is she very early on says that she will be taking all of the debate speaking time. Of course, Madeline and Louise agree to this because Paris is good at debating and also they don't want to do it. But this will come up later.
Yes.
This scene especially made me really wonder whether Paris is a Virgo, because this is just how I imagine many Virgos acting in a group project scenario. Very angry at everybody else.
That's funny. As you said, since Madeline and Louise are being friendly, it is interesting to watch their conversation unfold. Both of them are really curious in general about Rory's life and Lorelai in particular. We saw a bit of this in their conversation at the dance earlier on, where Madeline and Louise almost can't fathom that Lorelai is so young, that she is Rory's best friend, that Rory would go to a concert with her. Like, it's almost sad in the way of what they admire about Lorelai is clearly just like marking what is lacking in their own relationships at home. Like, they wouldn't want to go to concerts with their moms. They couldn't think about liking their mom even. Like, so it's sad, but, you know, it's helping develop them, make them a bit fuller characters for us as well.
Yeah. They also are very curious about Dean.
Yeah.
And I noticed something that I think might have been a mistake on the scriptwriter's part, which is at one point they ask Rory how long she's been with Dean, and she says, about a month.
Wrong.
This is impossible. Even if she's just talking about from the point when they had that defining the relationship talk, which was at the dance, that was before Christmas, like right after Thanksgiving, so early December-ish. So they've at least gone through all of December into January, and this is clearly kind of maybe, I don't know, February, March-ish. Outside it almost seems like spring. So it's clearly been at least probably 3 months since they became serious. So exactly. I don't know what they were thinking here.
I wrote that down too, and I'm like, that timeline cannot be correct. And it's not. I don't understand. Okay.
So upstairs during all of this, Lorelai is getting a little bit more information out of Sookie about Rachel. Something I thought was important to note that Sookie says about Rachel is that Stars Hollow was just too small for her. And this will come up way farther down the line when Luke and Lorelai are together, but I thought it was important because it just like does more to show that Luke is really like a homebody. He's not going anywhere. And he is so set on staying in Stars Hollow that even like this love of his life isn't going to take him out of Stars Hollow. I mean, he would probably never like travel around with her, but also it seems very clear that he wouldn't even move out of town, even if it was to Hartford or something. So I think that's an interesting point to show for Luke and his character development and their future together.
Yeah, it reminded me of that earlier line too between Lorelai and Luke, where I think it was Lorelai who said hard to imagine living somewhere else when they were watching that winter procession. So it's also interesting to me that both Lorelai and Luke are two people who would like feel incredibly strong ties to where they live. They have that in common, definitely.
Yeah, it's like they're meant to be.
Something like that. After having this conversation with Sookie, Lorelai heads downstairs to check in on the girls. She offers them pizza and soda. She also compiles a Pop-Tart platter as an appetizer, which has one apple in the middle for healthy. You know, it's healthy.
Very balanced.
But as Lorelai is watching the girls interact, she decides to mention to Rory a proposal, which is that Rory and the girls take the good tickets. Her and Sookie will just buy tickets when they get there, basically like cheap nosebleed seats. And I would say first that I'd be kind of annoyed if I was Sookie, because Sookie's the one who brought these tickets to them, and they're really good. So I feel like Sookie should have been brought into this decision in the first place. But second, I think I like support Lorelai's thinking here as she is mentioning to Rory, like, you are gonna be there for multiple years. It might not be such a bad idea to try to like get friends. And I think it's complicated because we've seen them be cold to her or bully her, things like that. But I thought that Lorelai kind of observing them and noticing that they're having friendly chatter, they're talking about like other things besides the group project, like it was a moment for her to kind of push Rory a little bit to be like, hey, maybe you go out on a limb here, see what happens. You know, I thought Lorelai's confidence and ideas in this moment were on point.
I think this is our first moment of disagreement because this is my Friday night dinner nomination. I do agree that I think that Lorelai was right in like mentioning that it seemed like things were going well and there was friendship potential here. But I think she went too far in offering up the concert tickets and like pressuring Rory into inviting these kind of strangers to something that was supposed to be like a fun activity where Rory could kind of let loose. And so now she has to go to this concert being self-conscious about like what these people are going to think about her. She's with Paris, who at this point is still kind of her nemesis, though they're starting to move past it. And I thought that this was just another example of Lorelai thinking about what Lorelai would want in this situation rather than Rory, because I think Lorelai would thrive in making friends in that kind of situation. I don't know that Rory would. And it reminds me of when Lorelai invited Dean back for the movie night.
Yeah.
Because she was trying to like, pressure, well, not pressure, but like be supportive in a way that, again, Lorelai would have liked. not thinking about the differences. And maybe I'm projecting. That's probably part of what's happening. But if somebody had done this to me and I had to go to a concert, especially when I was really excited about, with 3 people who I would have to be like constantly thinking about how they're perceiving me, like, are they having fun? What's going on? It would have ruined the entire night for me. And I don't think it necessarily ends up ruining the night for them, but I just would have been so angry if that had happened to me. Like, again, that's probably projecting, but yeah, that was my critique of Lorelai projecting. Kind of.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very, very solid critique, and my critique will be related to something that happens once Madeline and Louise are at the concert. So I totally get how you explain all that this like affects Rory's experience at the concert in a negative way, which I definitely agree with.
Plus, as you said, poor Suki is forced to go and sit at the very end or very back of the concert. But I think they make the most of it as it goes. Yeah. So this does bring us to the infamous concert, which has been discussed quite a lot. And I was surprised to see that they actually have like the Bangles performing in the episode. I think this is the first sort of cameo moment in Gilmore Girls. So it's kind of a milestone, right? Yeah, I think so. And yeah, I kind of wondered like how they managed it. Maybe there was just a concert going on and they asked if they could film stuff. Because I'm assuming at this point they didn't have the budget to actually bring the Bangles on for a concert just for that.
Right. Or did like Amy Sherman Palladino know them? So it was like a favor.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think I read the story of the song in the opening credits. Like, I think she worked with Carole King to do a version of it for Gilmore Girls specifically. I read an article about that, so I'll try and link it below if I find it. So maybe, the Sherman Palladinos have some connections.
Yeah. Well, it paid off. It was a pretty cool concert.
Yeah.
What kind of concerts have you gone to in the past? Do you have a concert that stands out in your mind?
Oh boy, I will roast myself a little bit. My first ever concert I went to was Glee Live. And it was just, all
Such
of
a
the
dork.
it was all of the Glee actors performing their songs, and I think this is like perfect to note how Glee was such a pop culture phenomenon, because this was like a stadium concert. It was a huge stadium, like the Rosemont one by Chicago. Like, I don't know how a television show could go. And they went to like Ireland and England on that tour. They had some international destinations, but they went all across the country. Like, so I can't think of a single other show, like a TV show, that could have a concert tour like that. And they'd had one the year before too. So just mind-blowing to me. But I think it's such a funny first concert because other people, talk about rock bands or all this other stuff, and Glee Live was my first. How about you?
I think my first concert was probably like Reliant K or something. I grew up in like in a church, going to youth group all the time and stuff. And that was like a big moment for some of those Christian rock bands, like Switchfoot and Reliant K. So I think one of my first concert was going to one of those. But I've also went to Warped Tour 2008, like a cool kid.
Oh, true. I did go to Lollapalooza once, but I hated it.
Yeah, those are such a weird thing to experience. Like, the one I went to was like on the side of an amusement park, so that was cool. You could go on rides and stuff.
Oh.
But like just a full day of bands and in the daylight. I don't know. There's something about seeing performances in the daylight that's just not as cool.
Yeah. And there were just so many people. I felt so overwhelmed.
Yeah, seriously. My favorite concert was actually just a few years ago when I saw my favorite band on their farewell tour. The band is called Him, Him. Yes, it's a weird name, but I'm an emo kid at heart. And it was their farewell tour, and I got to see them in Chicago, House of Blues, and it was wonderful.
Oh, yeah. I saw Darren Criss at House of Blues.
It's a good location. It was like crowded, and I just, it was a bit too crowded for me, but it was nice.
Very good. I had to return to the concert. In the episode, I picked the song Eternal Flame as my Rory's Bookshelf moment. I thought, they were just bringing up the Bangles a lot, and then I actually recognized this song, Eternal Flame, and it's another moment where I can roast myself a little bit, because the reason I recognize this song is that they sing it in the movie Pitch Perfect. Have you seen Pitch Perfect?
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah.
Yes, I love it.
And and I only knew it because the Bart and Bella's sing Eternal Flame. So I don't have much other reasoning than that, but I had just finally made that connection.
I didn't recognize any of the songs, although I do love Pitch Perfect. That's a great movie. Yes. I love most musical things.
Same, so, exactly.
Yeah. So some cool things happen during this. First off, Lorelai and Sookie have to hike all the way to the very top of the theater. And they have like a giggle fit. The guys sitting next to them are not happy about it. They did seem kind of delirious. I probably would have also been those grumpy dudes, to be honest. But downstairs, though, I think this is a great moment between Paris and Rory. They're kind of getting along. Paris is, in her own way, having a good time. But this is where the trouble begins with Madeline and Louise flirting with the guys standing behind them. And it doesn't end well for them. Yeah.
This is the moment for my Friday night dinner critique as well. This whole storyline about Madeline and Louise being these very like typical boy obsessed teenage girl characters. And so, I mean, part of my critique is maybe a bit geared toward the writing of the show. Like in a larger episode that brings more nuance to Madeline and Louise, this moment is very like stereotypical. I find it a bit far-fetched to think they're like that obsessed with boys all the time, but I don't know, maybe they are. But then the more just general critique is of the behavior itself and how they want to leave a concert. Like, they're at such a cool event that their friend or maybe their new friend potentially brought them to. Why would you leave? Like, this is the fun thing. That party looked incredibly boring and not fun at all. Like, this is the cool thing. And it doesn't make sense. It's also just totally not safe at all. Like, Roy's like, no, I'm not willing to go to a strange party in a strange city with these strange guys. Like, totally dangerous. I suppose part of the episode that I appreciate is making that critique itself. Like, they point out, like, this was not responsible at all, and it was dangerous. And we got to see this really fun scene of Lorelai, like, ranting at them for their behavior. So, overall, that was my critique of this moment.
Yeah, I agree. It was also just so rude to Rory and Lorelai and Sookie, who gave up their seats for them.
Yeah.
And if it kind of reminds me of when they were talking about their moms, and it really made me think that maybe they just don't have any conception of like a parent who would worry or something, which seems unlikely. They probably just don't realize that their parents worry about them. But yeah, it seemed like they had no no conception of the possible consequences or like what their actions were going to do to the other people around them. I am glad that Paris and Rory don't go along with them, that they stay. That would have been really bad, I think, if they had left with them.
Yeah. They seem very sheltered and entitled at the same time. But to go along with what you're questioning about, do they feel like they have parents who don't worry about them? That is a question that Paris raises in a moment that really made me sad for her, because when Paris is observing how Lorelai is adamantly going door to door in this apartment building where they've heard the party is, Paris wonders if her mom would come looking for her like that. And then she says, well, she'd probably send someone. And I don't know, like, are all of these children, like, super entitled, which, you know, I want to critique, but also feel a bit bad for them? Like, do they have nobody? Like, it really puts into perspective a potential, like, nature versus nurture kind of, like, that's overly simplified, but, like, what are their home environments like? I want to see more.
Yeah, I guess I wonder if it's meant to be kind of a parallel to what Lorelai's life growing up with Emily and Richard was. But at the same time, I feel like we get a clear picture that Emily and Richard do care about Lorelai even when she was a kid. Richard might have been a little bit more like distant, but Emily was very involved. It just wasn't how Lorelai needed her to be involved. Yeah. But it seems, like Madeline and Louise and Paris's parents aren't involved at all. So it just seems kind of like a absent parent kind of situation, which is, really sad.
Emily might be a precursor to like what's known as helicopter parenting today. Overly and aggressively involved.
Yeah. And helicopter grandparenting.
Exactly. Okay. To wrap up the concert evening, I think, as we mentioned, Lorelai and Sookie discover after the concert what has happened. They go to the apartment, rescue Madeline and Louise, yell at them to put them, to realize the wrongdoings. And as you had mentioned, overall, this was a bit of a bonding moment for Rory and Paris, which is really nice. Like, earlier on when they'd been waiting for Madeline and Louise, Rory asked Paris why she's into Tristan. And we get some interesting background context that they've known each other since kindergarten, and he kissed her on a dare at one point in 6th grade. But that conversation ends with Rory saying she thinks Paris could do better, which is a very nice compliment. Though the bar is low, like anyone could do better than Tristan because he's just the worst. But it's still a very kind thing to say to Paris, especially as they're in the very, very early stages of their friendship forming. But another good sign to kind of parallel what you said earlier on, you flagged hopefully for us, is that after this whole evening, Paris has decided to split the debate time with Rory, which is a big milestone.
Yeah, this at the very end of them like finding Madeline and Louise was my gazebo moment for the episode.
Yay.
When Paris says it's the best night she's ever had. And she might have been being somewhat sarcastic, but I think there was some genuine feeling to that. And I think it just, like, for me it was a gazebo moment because it's another like step on the beginning of a very strange but wonderful friendship that we've kind of been noting over the past couple episodes. So I was just happy, and we're getting to know Paris more, see more dimensions for her. And even though she has terrible taste in men at the time, I definitely feel like she had a childhood crush on Tristan, and I think that those kind of stick around despite new evidence of people's terribleness. So that's poor Paris, but I really liked this moment.
All right, then the last scene that we have in this episode is finally the rummage sale. I don't know what else to say about it other than Luke says he bought a magnet for, I think it was a nickel, and he says, I got magnetic sushi. All is right with the world. And I thought, same, Luke,
Yeah.
same.
I actually had my Lorelai's closet moment in this conversation with Luke because Lorelai is wearing a beanie that has green Bigfoots on it. You know, that like picture of Bigfoot where he's like walking through the forest and looking off to the side. So it's just kind of like him with his feet out and his arm, like one arm behind him, one in front.
Oh.
It was those just like green patterns on her beanie. It was the weirdest thing. I had paused it and I stared at it. It was like, are these like snowmen or like gingerbread people or something? But I'm pretty sure it was Bigfoot on her hat, and it was hilarious. I loved it. I would probably wear that hat. So yeah, I think that's pretty much what we get from the episode. The only other thing we get in this last scene is Lorelai kind of apologizes for inviting Madeline and Louise and Paris along. She admits that she really thought it was a great idea. She might have been kind of like maybe moved too quickly or something. But it doesn't seem to be a huge point of contention between the two of them. So
she anticipated your critique.
Yeah. Good. They're listening to us.
And the very last thing too is also that Luke and Lorelai touch base about the sweater, and she convinces Luke to take it back as a way for him to like remember the relationship. And he says like, I'm not pining, I'm remembering. And I thought, well, of course you can't be pining for Rachel because you're too busy pining for Lorelai. That was my last note.
Yeah. Can only pine for one person at a time.
Right.
Oh, that almost rhymed.
I like it.
Okay, cool. So this was a fun episode. I'm excited to see what happens next. This was there was drama in this episode, but overall it was kind of one of the more tame episodes. It didn't have a huge blowout fight or anything. So I'm excited to see what happens next.
Yeah, me too. That brings us to the end then.
Yeah, as always, don't forget to rate us and leave reviews on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen. And we're still taking gazebo moments from you, our wonderful listeners. And you can send those to talkingfastpodcast@gmail.com. You can either send them in a voice memo or you can just write it out and we'll read it for you. And also follow us on Instagram @talkingfastpodcast.
All right.
Till next week.
Yep. Talk to you next week.